Assalamu alaikum guys. How are you all doing? Walaikum assalam. Walaikum assalam. कैसी तैयारी है सबकी? What are the sentiments for tomorrow? Okay, walaikum assalam, Shayan, Abdul Rafe. Okay, so we are basically going to be discussing October, November 24, all the three variants, okay? And then I'm going to be giving you some tips as well for tomorrow. And after I am done with the video we're done with the stream, I have to make a video for last minute tips, okay? That I will be posting on Instagram. So उसमें कुछ चीज़ें आपको बतानी है about how to attempt the paper. And there's one more thing I need to post today on my Instagram link in bio. That is the cheat sheet for tomorrow. I have prepared a cheat sheet. That cheat sheet would include all the formulas that you need to know, including workings for GDP deflator, real GDP, how to convert GDP to real GDP, and some solved MCQ samples as well. Okay, and all the new things that were introduced in 2023 syllabus, like the Gini coefficient, some things on the Gini coefficient is also included. So all those things that you need to know, that is a formula sheet, and some other technical workings as well. All of it is included in the cheat sheet. So I will be sharing that as well. Okay. Now, October, November 24 was a good paper, and it has some technical MCQs as well, especially variant 2 has some tricky MCQs. Apart from that, I will be telling you guys in this stream on how to approach the paper, because so कोशिश मेरी होगी कि ये तीनों, I make sure that I finish these three papers, and if after some break or after a while, maybe late night, if we have that energy, so we'll see if we can do, I don't know, maybe 2023 paper or not, but we'll see that. But हमें ये तीनों variants ख़त्म करने हैं on November 2024. Any other question, guys, that you have before I start? We're starting with paper 11. You can download the paper from the group description. I think the group description has the paper, has a link. You click on that link, right? Drive link. You click on that drive link and you access the paper. Feb March 25 का paper out है. I have the Feb March 25 paper. You can get in touch with me. But the thing is that the Feb March paper is very, very easy. So it is very, very simple. Like you don't need me for that. You don't need me to run you through the entire paper, especially if I've run you through the difficult one. So that is a paper that you can do on your own. So I would prefer that instead of doing Feb March 25 on the live stream, I would probably end up doing the paper for November 23. And by the way, Tareem, the Feb March paper is also there on the Google Drive link for 6th of June. So go on the link below, click on it, go to 6th of June folder, and क्या कहते हैं, when you click on the that folder, basically you go to 6 June, and 6 June के folder में you have that क्या कहते हैं, you have that what do you say, paper for Feb March. So the Feb March paper is on the 6th of June का folder. You can access that. Acha, Prashant is saying, I'll explain you. Okay, Prashant, so I got in touch with a senior team leader from Cambridge. He is not there. He was the principal examiner in previous sessions, and we had a discussion on that. So basically, this MCQ has some. Such an MCQ shouldn't come where the difference is basically both the prices are giving a difference. But if there is a difference, then the conclusion is that if, for example, using the total revenue method, you have a different answer, while the PED formula method, you have a different answer, right? So use the PED formula method for unitary elasticity only if there's a difference in the answer. For example, when we were using the TR method, we were getting a price of $9.6, but when we were applying the formula and calculating the change in price, price, we were getting a price of $9, right? So $9 is the right answer for in the CI perspective. But usually जब हम ये हमारे पास MCQs आते हैं तो हम टोटल रेवेन्यू के मेथड से हमने वी हैव डिस्कस अ लॉट ऑफ MCQs वेयर वी हैव बीन डिस्कसिंग देम फ्रॉम द टोटल रेवेन्यू मेथड, राइट? So which year was that question? I remember कौन सा, you guys remember which year was that? Which year was that question? वो कौन सा year था? It was I don't know, May June something, some May June का पेपर था वो. It was variant 3 or what variant was it? It was I don't know what variant was that paper. It was ये रहा ना, हाँ. So usually हम जब इस तरीके से कर रहे होते हैं, so the other method is that you calculate the PED and you say that the PED is already given, right? So PED is 1. So you say percentage change in quantity demanded is from 8,000 it goes up all the way to 10,000, which is a 25% jump in quantity demanded, which means that the price also has to go down by 25%. Because 8,000 say we're going to the output of 10,000, which means that quantity demanded is going up by 25%. So the price has to go down by 25%, only then the price elasticity of demand would be equal to 1. So if you reduce the price of $12 by 25%, that is $12 go up, 25% इसका लें, 12 का, if you take out 25% of this, so that is 3. So 12 minus 3 is 9, right? So if there's a difference between both these prices, then in the exam, let's suppose you have an exam tomorrow and you are faced with a situation, a similar kind of situation, then what will you do in the exam? So you will select the answer option from the PED formula, and basically you will say that PED equals to percentage in quantity demand upon percentage in price, and so the price also has to go down by 25% so that the PED value equals to 1. Got it? Are we all clear on this? Are we all clear on this now? Okay. Okay. Now moving forward, इनाया, I don't really remember. पहले हम 24 के MCQs कर लेते हैं, उसके बाद mock 1 का भी देख लेंगे, ठीक है? Let's first finish the objective of today. After that, I'll take on a few questions and then we can discuss. Okay guys, we are starting with October November 24. अब देखें, आज जो मैं आपको October November 24 कराऊंगा, आज हमारे पास क्योंकि कल आपका पेपर है, so obviously I would suggest that just share the stream link with your peers and class fellows and students in your group so that more people could join. Today my objective is not only to solve the paper. Today my objective is to actually make you guys think that let's suppose you are in an exam situation, then what you're supposed to do. And not only that, मैं आपको ये भी सिखाऊंगा कि एग्जाम में आपको अटेम्प्ट करना कैसे है पेपर, ठीक है? वैसे तो मुझे ये बात रील जो आई हैव टू मेक अ लास्ट मिनट टिप्स वीडियो एज वेल. I was intending to make it include this over there, but I'll include it today as well. देखिए, पहली चीज़ तो आप ये समझ लें कि आपके पास जब ये एग्जाम सिचुएशन आएगी ना, तो यू विल हैव हर पेपर पे देयर विल बी 3 MCQs, राइट? एवरी पेज वुड इंक्लूड 3 MCQs, बट अगर डायग्राम है तो 2 MCQs, वरना if there's no diagram then 3 MCQs. One of the mistakes that, so you have to basically break your exam into 3 parts. You have to break your exam into 3 parts. The first part is your knowledge part. This is your knowledge part. The knowledge part will include 10 MCQs tomorrow. Now this is exactly from the mindset of an examiner when they're forming the MCQ papers. That's what I'm telling you. It will include 10 MCQs. Ab ye 10 MCQs, it's not necessary that these 10 MCQs are the first 10. They could be one from page 1, maybe the 15th, maybe the 24th, maybe the 22nd, maybe the 18th. These 10 MCQs will be like, what is a normative statement? What best describes a fiscal policy? क्या कहते हैं? Calculate the price elasticity of demand. Which of the following diagram represents price elasticity of supply equals to unity, right? Simple knowledge. What is a free good? What is the best example of a public good? आपने म्यूजिक वो मार्क कर दिया, स्ट्रीट लाइट मार्क कर दिया, ठीक है? Which best describes the factor of production land? 10 MCQs straight up. Any student any average or below average student, the minimum, he can easily score 10 MCQs. The first step for tomorrow will be that you need to identify those first 10 MCQs and you will attempt those first. Do not make the mistake of solving the MCQs in order. Do not do that. The examiners, when they make the MCQs, they make sure that out of the first 3 MCQs, the 4th one, they will make it difficult or they will make it confusing, right? Or the 7th one, they'll make it confusing. So don't make it, find out the first 10 MCQs that are the simplest ones so that you can easily solve them. Then you will have 10 MCQs. Then you will have 10 MCQs which will be which will include calculation based MCQs, probably diagrams, जैसे by what extent is the consumer surplus falling, when would the elasticity burden fall more on indirect tax burden fall more on consumer or producer, in what cases. This will basically be your application, right? It's not knowledge, but it's more on the application side. You're applying the concepts of whatever you have studied into probably an economic situation, right? And then the final MCQs would include your MCQs that would basically not only test your application, but they would basically try to confuse you into coming up with a justified answer. That would include your things like what could be concluded, right? What could be concluded, or what is not likely. So these are basically your distractors, right? What is not likely, what cannot be concluded, what is not, or what is most likely, or what is least likely, that, you know, what is the least likely reason. So हमेशा एक चीज, when you are attempting the MCQ, for example, let's say that you have an MCQ that is this MCQ, क्या कहते हैं, let's say what is most likely to increase a consumer circular flow of income. Now what is most likely MCQ में हमेशा they will give 2 answer options that are correct, both will be correct, but one of the MCQ will be 100% correct, and it will be better than the rest of the answer options. So although it's not that, so maybe A and B both might be correct, but option B might have a nuance that is an exception. So it might not be the best possible answer. So sometimes the struggle would be, or the fight would be between the right answer. Sometimes the fight would not be between the right and the wrong answer, but sometimes the fight would be between 2 right answers, but one of them would be much better and 100% correct, or in all situations would fit best. So that would be the best answer out of 2 right answers. ठीक है, हमेशा जब आप MCQ, अच्छा अब ये जो 10 MCQs होते हैं ना, ये वाले 10 MCQs जो मैं आपको बता रहा था, इन 10 MCQs में ये ख़ास तौर पे what can be concluded वाले, ये you have to attempt in the end. You have to attempt such MCQs in the end. ठीक है, you have to attempt these MCQs in the end. You will not attempt them initially. What can, for example, let's say this MCQ. For example, if I'm doing, सबसे पहले देखें, मैं मेरे सामने ये पेपर आएगा ना, मैं आपको बताता हूँ कौन से 10 MCQs हैं सबसे पहले आप करेंगे. Suppose the examiner says you have entered your candidate number, your name, everything. He says, okay, candidate, start the paper. अब generally आप क्या करेंगे, क्या you'll have a glance at all the 30 MCQs. There's no need to do that. Open the first page and attempt the first 3 easy MCQs on it, right? So for instance, I was the same, I would have attempted this. Now I need to read this, it will take me time to read this MCQ, so I will not attempt this. I will probably attempt this one. This looks easy. The first glance on the MCQ, you will understand that this could be an easy MCQ, it could be worth attending, right? Isi tarah I would first attempt this, then I would attempt this, then I will attempt this. I will not attempt this. Why? Because I need to calculate things here. So I will not attempt it. I will attempt. So first, then, for example, look, what can be concluded? I will not attempt this. I will leave it. I will also not attempt this because I need to think. For question 9, even I need to think. I will first attempt those MCQs that I don't need to think. I don't need to use my brain a lot. I will attempt this. I will immediately attempt question 11. I would immediately attempt question number not 14, not 15. I would immediately attempt In fact, I would not attempt any more questions immediately, because these are the first 10 questions that I would attempt, and then I would, move on to the next set of 10 questions. Okay? So first, you need to make sure that when you attempt the 10 most easiest questions, so 10 out of 30 is basically 1 out of 3, that is 33.33% of the paper you would have completed. You would have completed 33.33% of the paper very easily, right? So you've made sure that you gain those 10 perfect marks. So you're like, okay, fine, 33% I'm done. Now I need to work on the next 67%, right? This will give you confidence. Not only that, but you will also have an idea of the entire 30 questions. रही बात एक क्वेश्चन है कि बबल शीट साथ साथ फिल करनी. येस, बबल शीट आप साथ साथ फिल करें, ज़रूरी नहीं है कि उसको एंड पे फिल करें. बाय द वे, इसका कोई वो नहीं है, बट बबल शीट साथ साथ फिल करें. अगर टाइम निकल जाता है तो कभी कभी आप बबल शीट बच्चे फिल नहीं कर पाते. लेट्स से अगर टाइम निकल गया और लास्ट मोमेंट चल रहा है आपका, मे बी द एग्जाम, यू आर नॉट एबल टू फिल द एंड में क्या होता है कि बच्चे जल्दी में, इफ़ यू आर filling out the bubble sheet in panic, you might select the wrong answer. So fill the bubble sheet right there and then. Also, regarding the bubble sheet, fill it with pencil. Don't do it with pen. Make sure that you take a calculator and a pencil tomorrow. Pencil, calculator, eraser, all should be there. Pencil, calculator. अच्छा, अब मैं आपको एक चीज़ बताता हूँ. Okay, so I'm not really allowed to show you the exam checking scripts, and I will not. In fact, I will not. Although it's, I'm tempted to show you some scripts right now, but let's not go into that. Okay, so let me tell you something, by the way. I'll tell you something. When you have the bubble sheet, usually the students will answer like, let's say this is A, this is B, this is C, this is D, right? So you will shade the bubble sheet like this. Now, अब आपने ये shade किया, let's say you shade it like this, but you later on realize that the answer is not A and the answer was B. So आप फिर क्या करेंगे कि आप इसको erase करेंगे. So you will erase it and you will select B. अच्छा, अब आप जब B select करेंगे, let's say you are selecting B, so maybe you are using, and जो आपने जल्दी में इसको ऐसे किया. अच्छा, होता क्या है कि when you erase A, when you erase it with the pencil, with your eraser, at times, it's not correctly erased. And when the answers are scanned, because your answers are scanned, right? So when the bubble sheet is scanned and, the examiners are checking the answers, so both A and B appear marked. It seems that both are marked because the option A was not erased properly. So make sure that you erase the option A properly, and that this happens a lot, right? So it should only appear as that you have selected B as the right answer or the wrong answer, but it shouldn't be कि भाई आपके first two नहीं होने, ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए कि दो answer options. It seems like you selected both the answer options. So make sure of that कि when you erase your answer option and then you look at the correct answer, you mark the correct one or another one, you have erased the previous one. Okay. And I would recommend that you fill up the bubble sheet side by side. Also, for instance, so in my bubble sheet, for instance, I do. No, you don't put a cross. There's no need to put a cross. There's no need to put a cross. Erase it, because at times then what will happen is that you see it becomes confusing. Crossing it out is not the right way. There's no, you erase it, you select one answer, na? You erase the answer, you select one answer, just erase it and just put, select the right answer. There's no need to put a cross on it. So yeah, and there's no need to fill the bubble sheet with a pen. Fill it with a pencil. Also, the second thing is that make sure that you're writing your candidate number on your bubble sheet as well, right? Not okay. And the third thing that I would, before I proceed with the paper, is that, for instance, let's say, okay, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you have these answer options here. So, and then, all these answer options. So what you do is that, for instance, you mark option, this is option A, you mark A, then you mark C, and then you mark, then you leave question 3, and then question 4, you start marking this. Now you have left question 4 towards the end. You'll say that I'll look at this in the end because because it seems confusing. So there's no need to read the question first. First secure the 10 marks. Okay? First secure the top 10 marks so that you're confident now. First secure those 10 marks. The second thing is that when you have left question 3, you will put a circle over here on the question, on the actual bubble sheet question, not on the usme question paper. Bubble sheet ke upar aap, you will circle it, because so that because that would remind you that okay fine, question 3 I haven't attempted question 3. बिकॉज जब बबल शीट आप देखते हो ना, बबल शीट पे बहुत सारे आंसर ऑप्शंस ABCD, इनफैक्ट बबल शीट पे 40 तक होते हैं आंसर ऑप्शंस आई थिंक. सो उसमें अक्सर होता है कि बच्चे भूल जाते हैं. एट टाइम्स दे ओवरलुक इट, दे आर नॉट एबल टू सी इट दैट दे हैवंट मार्क्ड एन ऑप्शन. सो मेक श्योर दैट दिस इज प्रॉपरली सर्कल्ड. पुट अ बिग सर्कल ऑन इट. ओके everyone, are we clear on it? Now moving forward, any other questions? We are starting now. Which statement is correct? Which we are going to be completing all 3 variants today. Which statement about the normative statement? तो क्या होगा? What is the answer to question number 1? Yes guys, question number 1 का क्या आंसर है? देखो इन्विजुलेटर्स तो आपको गाइड करेंगे ना वहाँ पे. आई एम नॉट रियली श्योर अबाउट आर वी सपोज टू राइट द नेम ऑन द क्वेश्चन पेपर, बिकॉज दिस इज एन इन्विजुलेटर थिंग. सो दे विल गाइड यू वेदर यू आर सपोज टू राइट ऑन द क्वेश्चन पेपर और नॉट. क्वेश्चन नंबर 1, विच स्टेटमेंट इज अ नॉर्मेटिव स्टेटमेंट? एंड द करेक्ट आंसर फॉर अ नॉर्मेटिव स्टेटमेंट शुड बी D for David. The rise in interest rates in Malaysia in July 2022 is expected to have only a small impact, because it says it's expressing a value judgment. It's expected to have an impact means that it is expressing a value judgment about something, what ought to be or what should be, that it is expected to have a small impact. So something that includes any expectation or something that includes any interpretation, because interpretation are biased based on your own value judgments. Right, so it's a subjective assessment. Question number 2 says a firm is operating in country S, move to existing capital equipment to a larger factory in country T. It also install more of the same equipment and increase the size of the labor force. So question number 2, the correct answer to question number 2, from the evidence what must be true? So the firm is operating in the long run, the very long run. The firm's division of labor has increased. The firm's supply curve has shifted to the left. So obviously, if I read the answer options, another thing that I will do is that I will, out of 4 answer options, 2 are incorrect. For instance, C and D are clearly incorrect. There's no, I mean, so the answer would be A. The firm is operating in the long run, not the very long run. In the long run. The very long run mein there is a technological shift. There's a technological change in the very long run. In the long run, there is a size change in the capital. Basically, all factors of production are variable in the long run. And in the short run, you can only change your labor. But in the long run, you could change your land and your capital, right? But in the very long run, you could actually change your technology as well, right? So A is the correct answer. Which statement is not correct? अच्छा, इस तरह हमेशा देखो, ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. Which statement is not correct? तो not को जब आपने पढ़ा which statement is, when you read which statement is not correct, you immediately underline not, right? And this is a question that you will not immediately attempt. This is the question that you will attempt in the second round. Round 1 is the first 10 MCQs, because when you say that which statement is not correct, you need to assess every statement very carefully. So that is round 2 of the MCQs. First round 1, finish off the most easiest ones. Which statement is not correct? Okay. Now, obviously, national defense is regarded as a public good because one citizen consuming it reduces the amount available to others. I want you guys to please write down your answers as well, so that I can have an idea on what you guys are writing. So this is incorrect because public goods जो होते हैं, we know that public goods are non-rival and non-excludable, right? So if one person is consuming national defense, that doesn't reduces the availability to others. But the statement is saying that national defense, if consumed by one citizen, reduces the amount available to others. So that statement is inherently wrong, because that's not how public goods actually work. ठीक है. 3 should be C. Question number 4, the diagram shows Abdul Rafir, मुझे आपका question समझ नहीं आ रहा. Question number 4, the diagram shows the production possibility curve which shows the constant opportunity cost. Very easy, इसका A answer है. It should be attempted. इसमें तो आप 1 second लगाना चाहिए आपको. So A is the correct answer. Whenever you have a linear downward sloping PPC, the opportunity cost is constant, meaning that each additional unit that is being made, the marginal opportunity cost is constant. That is indicating perfect substitutability of the factors of production, perfect mobility of the factors of production, in fact perfect substitutability of the factors of production. Both are equally 100% suitable for producing both goods. Question number 5 says, question number 5 में farmers are using traditional methods, they lack access to finance and often employ family members on part-time basis. ठीक है. अच्छा, अब मैं आपको एक चीज़ समझाऊं कि एक्चुअल क्वेश्चन कभी कभी आप देखें ये वाली जो लाइन है ना, this line is usually irrelevant. I mean, this line, not usually, right now it is irrelevant. This is the actual question. So I read this line first, but then I read my question twice. हमेशा एक sentence दिया हुआ होगा आपको. These would be the irrelevant lines. So the irrelevant lines would be to just put you under more pressure so that you just get carried away, because they are not only testing your knowledge, they're going to test your pressure, they're going to test how you manage your nerves tomorrow, because paper 2 is a different sort of a paper. It's about writing skills, but this is not writing skills. It's a lot of things, and students mess more in MCQ papers, believe me, right? If working practices in agriculture would be improved, how would this likely to be shown on the PPC? So this is my main question statement, right? So definitely the answer is C for Charlie, from a movement from S to T. And this makes sense because if you see from a movement from S to T, the amount of production is actually for manufactured goods is the same, but the agricultural output is actually going up, right? So it's indicating that you're utilizing your existing resources more efficiently, especially in agriculture, right? Question number 6 says, in a particular year, 12,000 units are sold at a price of $1. In the later year, 14,000 units are sold at $1.2. So if consumer tastes have remained constant, what would account for a change between the 2 years? Now, question number 2 में pretty simple है. So basically what's happening is that the price is going up as well, the quantity that is being traded is going up as well. So this is actually indicating something, that demand must be going up. Usually this happens in a rise in demand, which means that if they're saying if consumer tastes have remained constant, it means there must be some other factor other than consumer taste being changing, because consumer taste is also one of the reasons why demand could rise. So the answer should be B for boy. An increase in the price of a substitute good would increase the demand for the product, increasing the price of the product, and hence increasing the quantity being traded. So 6 का होना चाहिए B for boy. Inaya says C नहीं होगा Inaya. The reason is that in C, it says an increase in the tax imposed on producers. Increasing tax imposed on producers would increase the price of the product from maybe 1 to 1.2 or maybe more or less, depending upon how much burden is transferred on the consumer, which depends on PED and PES, but that's irrelevant information right now. But then your quantity being traded is also going up. Now, so supplies left pe jati hai, when supplies falls to the left, your quantity that is being traded goes down. So here the quantity is going up. So demand is increasing. This is what you need to think here. Question 7, what is most likely to cause an increase in consumer surplus in the market for a normal good? So why not D in question 6? Question 6 says the formation of a monopoly in the production of a good. So why do you think it should be 6 ka D? If in fact formation of a monopoly would increase the price, but they may actually reduce the output and reduce the quantity, not increase the quantity. Monopolies have a tendency to exploit, and that is that they may reduce the quantity instead of increasing the quantity in the market. So 7 is not the right answer. Sorry, question 6 part D is not the right answer. This is a very vague sort of a statement. On the basis of this, we can't conclude definitely that price and quantity are increasing, but based on C, we can definitely conclude. So for things that we can definitely conclude, we mark them. Question 7, what is most likely to cause an increase? देखिए मैं आपको फिर बता रहा हूँ, it's not that it's the fight is not between the right and the wrong answer all the time. The fight is between what could be an answer versus what is definitely an answer. What could be the right answer versus what is definitely the right answer. Question 7 would be A for alpha, an increase in consumer incomes, because when consumer income goes up, your disposable income goes up and you become richer and you feel richer. When you feel richer, you would want to pay more for something. So you're okay in paying a higher price, and that means that the willingness to pay goes up, and when the willingness to pay goes up, then the consumer surplus goes up. So 7A is the right answer. Because higher incomes would raise the willingness to pay for the good, and that expands the area of consumer surplus. And consumer surplus is the area, is basically what consumers are willing to pay minus what they actually pay. Question number 8 says, the table shows Lee and Yim's price elasticity of demand. Again, I will not attempt question number 8 immediately. I will attempt it in the end. This is a question that I will attempt it in the end. The table says, why not B for what? An increase in number of substitutes. Increase in, if you look at increase in number of substitutes, increasing the number of increasing, okay. An increase in number of substitute would basically increase the demand for the good. नहीं, increase in number of substitutes है ना, so increase in number of substitutes तो हो ही नहीं सकता. Increase in price of substitute थोड़ी है, increase in number of substitutes. Also, if increase in number of substitutes would make your demand elastic, and demand elastic, that is, it would mean that your PED would become more than 1, and a PED that is more than 1 becomes elastic, and an elastic demand has a lower consumer surplus. In fact, consumer surplus increases and decreases by a lower absolute amount when demand is elastic. So whenever demand is elastic, the increase and decrease in consumer surplus is much lower than the fact when demand was inelastic. So B is not the answer in absolute terms. Question number 8, the correct answer would be C for Charlie, because you see, this dude Yim is paying his PED is minus 0.8. So if restaurant meals ki prices are going up and the cinema tickets ki prices are going down, so this dude Yim has an elasticity of less than 1, the PED is less than 1, and so if restaurant meals ki prices are going up, then the total expenditure for Yim would go up, and the total expenditure for cinema tickets will go up as well, because Yim ki elasticity is 1.3 for cinema tickets. So if the price of cinema tickets goes down, Yim is quite he would just immediately want to spend more on cinema tickets and buying and going for more movies a week. So definitely his spending on movies would immediately go up. So total expenditure is going to rise. Just like, this guy loves watching movies in cinema like crazy. So okay, so total expense. So Yim will spend more money on both cinema tickets and restaurant meals. अच्छा, मैं आपको एक चीज़ समझा देता हूँ. Every one of you should pay very close attention to what I am saying. For questions like these, I want the entire student body watching me right now to listen to me very carefully. For questions like these, we always try to find the right answer. We are actually trying to find the right answer. And when we are trying to find the right answer, what is the thought process in our head? The thought process in our head is that we try to match economic theory with the question statement, right? With the question statement that is right. We try to match the economic theory with the question statement that is right. And we struggle with that a lot of times because we're not able to find the right answer, because at times 2-3 options look right. So when we try to match the economic theory with the question statement that is right, we're unable to find the right answer, especially for MCQs that say what can be concluded. So what then you do is that you try to match economic theory with a question statement that is wrong or that is incorrect, which means that you look for the incorrect answer. If they're saying that what can be concluded, isko kis tarah karte hain? How do you do that? What should be the change? Thought pattern kya hoga uska? The thought pattern would be that you will say, okay, fine. Instead of me trying to find out what can be concluded after these price changes, I will find out what cannot be concluded. As in, instead of thinking that what can be concluded, I will try to find out what cannot be concluded. This is what I will try to find out. For example, if I am not able to reach the right conclusion at C, so what I will do is that I will try to find out what cannot be concluded. So let's see what cannot be concluded. For example, option A, restaurant owners will receive more income. Option A says restaurant owners will receive more income. Now, how will I know that restaurant owners would receive more income? Because, क्या कहते हैं? Firstly, I cannot basically conclude. So this cannot be concluded. So because it says that what cannot be concluded, so I cannot. So restaurant owners will receive more income. This is something that I cannot conclude. Because यहाँ पे revenue की बात, यहाँ पे I mean क्या कहते हैं, if you look at restaurant owners, so if you look at restaurant meals, so the price of restaurant meals is going up, and if the price of restaurant meals is going up, then for Lee, क्या कहते हैं, Lee's total expenditure would drastically fall because Lee has an elastic demand. So Lee's total expenditure would drastically fall. So this, while Yim's total expenditure would increase. So again, it's difficult to conclude that whether overall revenues for restaurant owners will rise or fall. So this cannot be concluded. So I'm trying to now find out what cannot be. So I cannot conclude this, that whether overall restaurant owners will receive more income or not. Right? So restaurant meals ki prices are going up, and Lee would immediately reduce consumption, while Yim would increase total spending. But then it's difficult for me to figure out that overall impact kya hoga, because, and I'll tell you why. Because I don't know how much was Lee consuming before. Was Lee consuming 100 units and was Yim consuming 100 or 200 units, right? So we don't really know what quantities were they consuming before, right? So we can't conclude this. Lee will spend more money on both cinema tickets and restaurant meals. No, I mean, Lee will not spend more money on both cinema tickets and restaurant meals. In fact, this is also not correct. In fact, Lee will spend less money on restaurant meals and Lee will spend less money on cinema tickets as well, right? Lee will spend less money on cinema tickets. Why? Because Lee ki demand is inelastic for cinema tickets, and when the demand PD is less than 1 and you reduce the price, then total revenue and total expenditure goes down. While if you increase the price, then it goes up, vice versa. While if the demand is elastic greater than 1, which we know that the Lee's demand is for restaurant meals is elastic 1.2 hai. So, and यहाँ पे restaurant meal की prices are going down. So if you increase the price when your demand is elastic, then the total expenditure and your total revenue will actually decrease. So this is incorrect as well. So now if I am unable to conclude that whether Yim will spend more, see, at times I might not be able to conclude whether Yim will be able to spend more on cinema tickets or not. I might not be able to think in that direction. But I can think in the first two I am able to cross out, right? Again, cinema owners will receive less income. This is again, it's difficult for me to conclude on that, because yes, while Yim dude is going every day and spending money on watching movies, Lee is not, Lee doesn't really cares, and I mean, for him, cinema was just nothing. So Lee's overall expenditure on cinema tickets would fall, because when demand is inelastic, price goes down, that goes down. Now, the point is, we don't really know that how many times was Yim visiting cinema previously and how many times was Lee visiting cinema previously. We don't have the absolute quantities of them. So we don't really know that, and we also don't really know that since we don't know how much was Lee going previously and how much was Yim going previously, so we can't really absolutely determine that. Cinema owners will receive less income, we can't determine that as well. Which means that only option C is left. So if I have concluded that what cannot be concluded, I said this cannot be concluded, this cannot be, I eliminated. I'm left with, you mark the answer C. In an exam situation, you don't need to know why C is correct. But if you are unable to exam में you don't need to know why C is. Exam में सोचने की ज़रूरत नहीं है आपको कि भाई why is C correct, why is C correct. if you have eliminated A, B, D, then you have eliminated A, B, D. Which means that you're left with C. Now, even if you don't understand why C is the right answer, you mark C as the right answer if you know that yes, A, B, D are wrong. So sometimes you will not be able to figure out why C is right. So reverse the narrative, and instead of attempting the question as what can be concluded, you attempt the question as what cannot be concluded, especially when you're stuck in an MCQ. Are we clear on this, guys? So 8 is C. Question number 9, what is not held constant when, what is not held constant when aggregating individuals from supply curve to give the short run supply curve? Again, a very easy peasy question. The correct answer is boy. It is price is not held constant because neither for the aggregating the individual demand curves, neither aggregating individual supply curves. Which elasticity would a shortage of skilled workers affect? Which elasticity would a shortage of skilled workers affect? For question number 10, which elasticity would a shortage of skilled workers affect? And the correct answer would be David. Why? Because when you have a shortage of skilled workers, then supply would become less expensive, less responsive in the exam, especially when skilled workers are in short supply. So supply would become less responsive, especially when your skilled workers are in short supply. So David is the correct answer. Sir, repeated honge some MCQs will be repeated. You will see that at least 2-3 MCQs will be repeated in the exam. The demand shows an individual initial demand curve for public transport. What would cause a demand curve to shift to D2, D2? So basically, the demand curve is shifting from D1 to D2, right? You're shifting to the left. So this is again, I think, a repeated question. We have done this in the mocks as well and previously as well. So question number 11 का जो answer होना चाहिए, that should be the answer should be for question number 11 should be David. The quality of the public transport declines because when the quality would decline, it is going to shift the demand curve to the left, right? Question number 12 says what government criteria would be identified as a direct provision of goods and services? Now, if the government is direct provision means that the government is directly providing the good, it is directly delivering the good itself, right? And so road maintenance in this case, it says increasing road maintenance because of poor weather conditions would be the right answer. Okay? This is the direct provision. B is transfer payment. This is not a direct provision of goods and services. It's just transfer payment. This is something else. Okay? Also, although the government is giving transfer payment, but direct provision means the government is producing that good that will generate GDP. That will be part of GDP. Transfer payment is not part of GDP. Okay? And maintaining road is a service that is carried out by the government itself. So it should be A for alpha. A specific tax, ये incorrect diagram है, इसको छोड़ दें. A specific tax is imposed on a diagram. A specific tax is imposed on a product for which the supply elasticity of supply is 0. Which statement is correct? Question number 13. And you guys must know that when the supply is perfectly elastic, that is it is equal to 0, all the burden basically falls on the producer. And while the supply, okay, so while the demand is elastic, then so all the burden would basically fall on the producer, and but if the supply is perfectly elastic, then all the burden would fall on the consumer. If supply is perfectly inelastic, then all the burden would fall on the producer. If supply is perfectly elastic, then all the burden would fall on the consumer. The burden of tax will fall entirely on the suppliers. Okay? So since it's elastic, so I mean it means that suppliers here cannot change the quantity. Even if a tax is imposed, they cannot change the quantity, right? And so they would just bear or absorb the entire tax and they will not pass it on to consumers here. So boy is the right answer. Question number 13 ka, and if supply would have been perfectly elastic, then your if supply would have been perfectly elastic, then in that case your tax ka burden would have fallen more on the consumer. So if your supply would have been perfectly elastic, the tax ka burden would have fallen on the consumer. ठीक है, ओके. इसी तरह सब्सिडी का भी आप देख लें. सब्सिडी का भी जो होता है वो इफ़ द सब्सिडी is perfect, if basically the supply is perfectly elastic, then whole subsidy benefit falls on the consumer. Whole benefit falls on the consumer. While if the supply is perfectly inelastic, okay, then the whole subsidy benefit would fall. I mean, whole subsidy benefit would accrue to, not fall, but accrue to the seller or the firm. Okay, got it? So question number 14 says a government wishes to intervene in a free market. A government wishes to intervene in a free market to allocate healthcare at the socially optimum level. So yeah, so there definitely is a market failure here. So which combination correctly identifies the reason for government intervention? अब इस तरह के जो सवाल होते हैं ना, for questions like question number 14, which says which combination correctly identifies, which means that all three must be present. So instead of finding all three together, just first eliminate, reduce the choice, narrow down your choices, select a column that you find it easier. It could be any of the three columns, and then see what's going to happen. So for example, which combination correctly identifies the government intervention? So definitely healthcare is a merit good, and merit good must be under allocated. It's under consumed. That is what justifies government intervention. So either the answer has to be either the answer has to be C or D. So I narrow it down because I look at the first column only and I say, okay, fine. I mean, healthcare has to be under consumed. So the answer option has to be either C or D. And in D, it says, in C, it says healthcare production in the market is also underproduced, definitely if under consumed. If it's under consumed, then healthcare production is underproduced as well. And information is too little because there's information failure. Okay? Question number 15. Question number 15 says, Question 15 says the table shows CPI for a country. Which statement about the period 2008-2013 is correct? Okay? So the prices increase. Obviously, I need to actually calculate the rate of inflation. And here the rate of inflation is 4%. Here there is deflation. From 2009 to 2010 there is deflation. From 2010 to 2011 there is again inflation, but I need to calculate how much of it is. Then the inflation rate is coming to 2.9% inflation. Then in 2011 to 2012 there is 108 minus 105 divided by 105 times 100. So you have inflation of again 2.85 or 2.9%. And over here you have 111 minus 108 divided by 108 times 100. And so you have inflation of 2.7%. So inflation, question number 15, you have inflation 2.7%, 2.78% roughly, which means that the smallest increase in prices was in 2013. In the year 2013, from 2012 to when you move to 2013, so yeah, from the year 2012 to 2013, which is year 2013, the prices went up by the smallest amount. That is, they only went up by 2.78%. Prices increase each year. This is wrong because beach mein there has been deflation. So the A option is wrong. Prices did fall. Prices increase faster in 2011. No, that is incorrect because in 2011 prices went up by 2.9%. So it wasn't the fastest. In fact, the fastest growth in prices was in 2009 by 4%. In 2010, the rate of inflation was 2%. This is correct. In 2010, the CPI dropped, and when the CPI would drop, there is no inflation, there is deflation. When the CPI index drops, there is deflation. So 15 is David. Question number 16: what is most likely to cause the price level to rise? So what is most likely to cause the price levels to go up? Question number 16 says, what is most likely to cause the price levels to go up? And the correct answer for this should be the raw material prices, because it would increase the production cost and cause cost push inflation. So 16 should be boy. Question number 17, what is most likely to increase a country's circular flow of income? See, circular flow of income, it is a flow of income, right? In a loop. That's why the word circular flow is used. So imports are basically leakages. So if leakages would go up, circular flow of income would not go up. In fact, it would decrease. Increasing interest rates would basically reduce AD and consumption. So again, this is not a good option. Increasing exchange rates would again have a dampening effect on net exports. So no. A is the correct answer. Its budget deficit increases because budget deficit is an expansionary fiscal. It results because of an expansionary fiscal policy, and so government spending is more than taxes, which means that, see, government spending is injection while taxes is withdrawal. So if injection is more than withdrawal, so you have a net injection here, right? And so net injections in the economy would definitely increase the circular flow of income. That is what makes A the correct answer. It is an injection into the circular flow. Option number A would increase the flow of income. It will increase the circular flow of income because it is a net injection. It injects spending into the economy. There's net injection of spending into the economy. Question number 18. A country with a constant population experiences 5% increase in its nominal GDP during a current year. In which situation will average living standards be most likely to have increased during the year? If government takes action to ensure there is no increased unemployment, this is incorrect because the question is saying that in which situation will average living standards most likely to have increased. So if government takes action to ensure that there is no increase in unemployment, so we aren't really sure whether output is increasing or not. I mean, the government is making sure there is no increase in unemployment, but that doesn't guarantee that real GDP, I mean, output is increasing as well or not. So we can't really guarantee it, right? देखें इस तरह के जो questions होते हैं ना, हमेशा याद रखना, when questions like this, most likely. So आपके answer option में एक option ऐसा होगा that will be likely but less likely. So option A seemed correct. To an extent we could debate on it, but it is not most likely, probably least likely, because reduction in unemployment doesn't really means that we are not ensuring that output is rising here. It's just that unemployment is not increasing, right? Maybe no one is unemployed, but that doesn't mean that more output is produced. So option number B is correct because it says inflation is 3%. Because if nominal GDP, if you look at what real GDP growth in terms of percentage is equals to nominal GDP growth minus inflation rate. Inflation rate is the growth in price level. So real GDP growth would be 2% because nominal GDP is 5% growing and your inflation rate is going up by 3%. So there's a growth of real GDP too. So if real GDP is growing by 2%, that would guarantee an increase in living standards. So that is what makes boy the correct answer. Option C is incorrect because no increase in real GDP means no increase in improvement in living standards. If there is no redistribution of income, see, income redistribution जो होती है, जो income redistribution doesn't really affects the overall GDP per capita. As in, see, living standards are concerned with GDP per capita, and GDP per capita is basically GDP divided by population. That is on an average how much does one person makes. On an average, how much does one person makes, right? How much is his annual income? GDP per capita is how much is the annual income per person on an average in a particular year. So for real GDP per capita, I'm talking about real GDP per capita. So for living standards to go up, real GDP per capita has to go up, which will go up when real GDP is going up. And if the denominator that is population is in the denominator, if this is constant, the denominator is constant and real GDP is going up, then real GDP per capita has to go up. So yeah, so real GDP per capita is average income per person. How much does an average person earns in a year? So if there is no redistribution of income, income redistribution is not really affecting your real GDP per capita. Okay, income redistribution is probably just redistribute. I mean, real GDP per capita, it's not going to directly affect the value of the real GDP per capita. So that is why boy is the correct answer. Okay. Okay, so this MCQ most likely a lot of students did end up screwing up, and this sort of an MCQ. Question number 19. Are we good? Right. Question number 19 says. Question number 19 is pretty simple. Question 19 is 18 clear to everyone? Question number 19 correct answer would be boy, because short-run aggregate supply curve is upward sloping. The fact that it's upward sloping means that it has a positive gradient. On the horizontal axis, you measure output and price level on the vertical. Moving forward, the government makes two changes to income taxes. The individual tax-free income allowance is increased. Tax-free income allowance means that the first 10,000 or maybe the first 20,000 or the first 50,000 are not taxed. So it's a progressive tax system where the first, but then it says that the marginal rate of income tax decreases, which means that additional incomes are now taxed less than before. Now the thing is that if the initial incomes are, so let's say if initially 100,000 was not taxed, and then so 100,000 from 0 to 100,000 there was 0% tax. It was not taxable, and then from 101,000 to, let's say, I don't know, maybe 150,000, the tax rate was 10%. So now what the government did was that it said that from 0 to 130,000 there is no tax, and then from 131 to 150,000 the tax rate goes down to 4%. So it reduces the marginal tax rate, increases the income tax allowance. So definitely your disposable incomes are going up, and people would love this, right? Because the disposable incomes would go up, and in aggregate demand would go up because there would be more spending because of a rise in disposable income. At the same time, it would also create more productivity. Productivity levels would go up. It would create more incentives to work, and probably more people would join the labor force who weren't really joining before, or who were probably sitting at home. So it will definitely shift the aggregate supply to the right as well, both short run and long run as well, because it would increase productivity and efficiency. That would have, and productivity improvements have an impact on both short run and long run aggregate supply. So the correct answer should be C for Charlie. The correct answer should be C for Charlie. क्वेश्चन नंबर 21. अब देखें ना, बहुत सारे बच्चों ने इसमें एग्रीगेट सप्लाई को अनचेंज कर दिया होगा. Fiscal income tax is a fiscal policy. Remember that fiscal policy has an effect on both aggregate demand and aggregate supply. Question number 21 says, which supply side policy is most likely to decrease a government's budget deficit? We all know what a government's budget deficit is. So cutting unemployment benefits should be the answer, because cutting unemployment benefits would mean that it would lower the government spending on unemployment benefits, which will reduce the budget deficit. Unnecessary spending, because you see, unemployment benefit a lot of the unemployment benefits are also unnecessary expenditure. So reducing it would reduce the government's budget deficits, right? And there's also another way to look at this as well. And the other way to look at this is when you cut down unemployment benefits, that motivates more workers to actually get back into the labor force and start looking for jobs, because now they aren't really reliant on government's benefits anymore. So the relaxation time is over now, and they gotta get their shit straight and start working. And when they start working, then tax revenues would go up as well. So government spending would go down and the tax revenues would go up, so the budget deficit would go down. So you can also link it through this. Question 22, which combination of fiscal and monetary policies would be expansionary? Again, I told you guys, look at the first column and then narrow down your answer options. Expansionary mein money supply has to go up, so it's either C or D. And the government spending also has to increase while taxes have to decrease. So this is a very simple answer, straight 1 mark. Question number 23 says the central bank of a country raises interest rates to reduce the price level. When is this policy likely to have the biggest impact? Yes, 23. 23 ka correct answer should be C for Charlie, because if the central bank raises interest rates to reduce the price level, when is this policy likely to have the biggest impact? Which means that, you have to understand that so if you look at the Keynesian aggregate supply curve, if your economy is overheating itself and the economy is at potential GDP, and we know that this YFE output corresponds with a point. I mean, maybe we could be, if this is A, then A could be a point on the PPC as well. So we want to reduce our AD, right, to the left, and we want to bring down our inflation. So for inflation to go down, the economy has to be at full employment. Only then is the government intervening to reduce inflation. Because if you're not at full employment, because such a policy will reduce inflation by a lot of amount. But if you're already below full employment, then maybe if you're already somewhere close to here and the price level is already quite low, and bringing down the price level, bringing down AD through higher interest rates would reduce the price level from P1 to P2. But look at the price level falling over here versus the price level falling over here. So they're asking you that which policy is likely to have the biggest impact on the reduction in price level. So definitely your economy has to be at full employment on the PPC curve. And in this diagram, the economy is not at full employment. The full employment level of output is YFE, while your economy is at Y1. Okay? So this is a good MCQ question. Question number 23 on the PPC. A lot of times students know that they end up marking the right answer without really knowing the concept. So you have to know the concept, that why is this answer option right, in the way that it is right, in the way that it is actually right, but not in the way that you think it is right. So position of the economy on the PPC, responsiveness of AD to interest rate changes should be high as well. If you increase the interest rates, then AD should go down. Okay? मैंने नोट नहीं किया, इतने सारे सी हैं, बट इतना सोचने की ज़रूरत नहीं है आपको. Question number 24, the table shows the trade in goods and services for an economy between 2009. Oh, by the way, अबे अगर एग्जाम में let's suppose आपने बहुत पूरी, let's suppose you're not able, you just end up and you're like, I don't know what the answer is. Like you've tried everything, but you've tried everything and then you don't know the answer, nothing. So just don't leave it. Just mark it whatever you think is right, because there's no negative marking. So it's better than leaving a blank. Maybe God knows something works out and that is the right answer maybe. So don't leave it. Okay. Question 24, the table shows the trade in goods and services for an economy between 2019 and 2021. What would most likely cause the change from 2019 to 2021? This is a good question. Yes, guys, question number 24, what would be the answer? I would like you all to please start commenting in the chat so that I have opened the chat in front of me. I can actually know that what you guys are writing. Question number 24 ka answer kya hoga? What would have most likely caused the change? So what is exactly the change? First, identify the change. The change is that the current account deficit is actually going up for question number 24. Because the deficit is worsening because the trade in goods and services is negative, which means that it is causing a current account deficit. And the correct answer for question number 24 should be C for Charlie, increasing domestic inflation, because that would make your exports uncompetitive and reduce your exports, while imports would appear more competitive and people would start importing more. So net exports would go down. And if this goes down, the current account becomes deficit. Net exports going down means that probably imports are, just look at this way, forget that, just look at this way, imports are more than exports. Imports are going up, exports are going down, so net exports are going down. So imports going up and exports going down will have a negative impact on balance of trade. 24C, A government subsidizes training to improve the skills of the workers in the industrial sector of an economy. What is the most likely effect on the current account of the BOP? Question number 25. The government subsidizes industrial worker training. So what should be the likely effect on the BOP? What do you think would be the likely effect on the balance of payment if the government is 25. Exports will rise definitely, because better skilled labor would make the labor force more productive in terms of quality and efficiency, which would ultimately have a spillover effect on the price competitiveness of your domestic economy, increasing exports. Question number 25 says, using all the resources efficiently, X can produce. Again, good question. Again, there are inflation topical video, comparative advantage topical video, and national income topical video. Make sure that you watch these topical videos from my playlist, topical videos ki playlist, and yearly playlist as well. There are a couple of more videos in the yearly playlist. Wheat and steel. So X can produce 6 tons of wheat and 2 million tons of steel. Y can make 4 million tons of wheat and 1 million tons of steel. So for Y, the opportunity cost of 1 steel is 4 wheat. So let's take out the opportunity cost for X. So for 1 steel, the opportunity cost is 3 wheat, which means that for X should specialize in steel, right? And Y should specialize in wheat. So for question number 26, if you look at the answer, the correct answer for question number 26 should be A for alpha, that country X should produce only steel, right? Question 26 should be A for alpha, country X should produce only steel, because that is the comparative advantage it has in steel. 27. Countries X and Y are trading partners. An increase in which economic indicator in Y is most likely to cause a fall in exchange rate? They are trading partners. An increase in which economic indicator in Y is most likely to cause a fall in exchange. So again, for question number 27, what is going to happen is that if Y imposes trade barriers, then the exports of country X would fall, because Y's imports are country X's exports. So if Y imposes trade barriers, then the demand for country X's imports would go down, because country X's imports would be very expensive in Y now. So that's what make D the correct answer for question number 27. Question number 28 says, which transaction is not recorded in the current account? The current account records various transactions. Aid received from government of another country is recorded in the current account. This is recorded in the current account under secondary income. Export of raw materials is recorded under the balance of trade and goods. Payment of dividend to an overseas investor is recorded under primary income, that is factor income. Investment by a foreign company, that is FDI. FDI is a capital inflow. It is recorded in the financial account of the BOP. 29. A government decides to place a tariff on the import of raw material. Which statement about the impact of tariff is correct? Usually now you see that the trend of the recent past papers have been that they are testing less diagrams. So in tomorrow's exam also, you can expect a diagrams of around like 4 diagrams max, right? Or if not more than 5. Whereas I am expecting around 3 diagrams or to 4 diagrams. But the max that they will go is 5. They will not give you more than 5 diagrams in tomorrow's paper, right? One question will be on terms of trade. One question will be on inflation CPI. One question will be on the current account exchange rate. One question will definitely come on identifying the change in consumer surplus. One question will come on positive normative statements, public goods, free goods. So they do test a comprehensive woe. And here, those students are the worst affected who actually do selective studying for paper 2. For instance, if your international trade topic is weak, you're like, oh, leave it. I'll leave the question on section C or international trade in paper 2. But that screws up paper 1. A government decides to place a tariff on import of raw materials. So question number 29. Which statement about, again, it's very easy. It increases the cost of production for domestic firms, because firms are importing, so that makes the import of raw material expensive. 30. In which situation will a country's terms of trade improve? Terms of trade kya hota hai? It is the average export index, average export index price, that is average export index price, and index of export prices. over the index of import prices. And so times 100 because times 100 is not a percentage. Times 100 is that we are converting this ratio into an index number. So the answer to question number 30 should be C for Charlie. The price of its imports rises by less than the price of its exports. The price of its imports rises by less than the price of its exports, and this makes perfect sense, because if the price of imports will rise by less, for instance, if this is going up, but then the price of exports is going by a lot more, so the numerator is going up by a lot more. The numerator is going up by a lot more than the denominator, so terms of trade should rise, right? So C is the correct answer, and that finishes the paper. Now we are starting with variant 2. Variant 2 was slightly technical, so I'm taking a 2-minute water break. You guys can take a 2-minute water break, and we'll be back on variant 2 after 2 minutes. Okay, so we are back. Let's start without. सर दुआ करना बहुत मेहनत के लिए फुल सिलेबस इंशाल्लाह. I hope you guys do well. Question number 1. We are doing May, June, October, November 2024 variant 2. The PPC for a country is shown. What is determined from the diagram? So what can you determine from the diagram, guys? What do you think that you can come out, interpret from this diagram? Question number 1. Yes, what would be the answer to question number 1? C, the opportunity cost of manufactured goods in terms of agricultural goods. Yes, the PPC would show the opportunity cost for agricultural goods in terms of manufactured goods, as well as the opportunity cost for manufactured goods in terms of agricultural goods. So it's both ways. So in a clothing business, after specialization, real output per worker increased in the first 6 months, but then output per worker began to fall. What would be most likely for the reduction in productivity? So you see, labor productivity. What is labor productivity? Labor productivity is basically output per worker, right? It's basically output per worker. That is total output divided by the number of workers, right? So that is what labor productivity is. So labor productivity, that is output per worker, is a measure of efficiency of the workers, right? So for question number 2, the correct answer would be D for David, because initially, because of division of, this is basically from the topic of division of labor and specialization of workers, not international country specialization, but of individual workers. So that causes the productivity to go up initially, but then the work becomes boring and monotonous because and it reduces their productivity and motivation. So question number 3, a wine producer and bottler want to expand its production. To finance the expansion, it offered investors discounts on restaurant meals if they bought 200 shares in the company. What factors of production are most likely to be involved in the expansion? Yes. What factors of production are involved? You have land involved. Yes. You have definitely land is involved, because for producing wine, definitely you need to source out some fruits as well and some natural ingredients. So definitely land is involved, and labor is involved as well, because you definitely expansion cannot be financed without hiring more workers. Capital equipment is required as well, and enterprise who will organize this expansion. That is what makes 3A the correct answer. A for alpha. Labor, land, some students I think have marked boy. B is not the answer, beta. The correct answer is A for alpha for question number 3. All 4 factors of production are involved. Question number 4 says, which statement is positive? Which statement is positive? Just a second. Okay. Question number 4, which statement is positive? So which would be a positive statement, guys? Question number 4, which statement would be positive? David, income inequality is decreasing. We can actually test this. We can actually test this, that whether it is decreasing or not, and we can, based on that, we can right. So this is a positive statement because it could be tested using whatever data we have, and hence we could conclude whether it is decreasing or not. Question number 5 says the diagram shows the change in a country's production possibility curve from PQ to PR. So there is a pivotal shift here, increasing the production capacity of private goods. So what will result in a change from PQ to PR, right? So what is going to happen? Why not be what? Why not be? A progressive tax is a fair tax. See, you have to understand that when you're saying progressive tax is a fair tax, the word fair or desirable or involves value judgment. So it could be fair maybe for some. I mean, it is a generally. देखें आप मेरी बात को आप समझ नहीं रहे. Positive statement doesn't mean that the statement is right or wrong or it's a fact. Progressive taxes are considered fair, but that's a fact. It's a fact. But is it a positive statement that I say that progressive taxes is a fair tax? No, it's a value judgment. Right? It's a value judgment. So so positive statement doesn't mean that it has to be a fact. ठीक है? Or it has to be right. So क्या कहते हैं? Question number 5, the correct answer to question number 5 would be, so always remember statements like that include words like should, fair, ought to, desirable. These are all normative statements. Question number 5, because the reason is that in some countries, yes, progressive taxes might be considered fair, but in some countries might not be really into having a progressive tax system, right? Not all countries always have a progressive tax system, right? So it's a value judgment. It's not a positive state. The statement itself is not positive. That's what we're saying. Okay. So okay, guys, question number 5. What would be the answer to question number 5? Could anyone tell what would be the answer to question 5 here? Yes, guys, question number 5. What would be the answer to question number 5? Question number 5 would be D for David. The opportunity cost of public goods is rising because obviously if you were producing P units of public goods, then you were sacrificing Q amount of private goods. But now for the same P units of public goods, you're actually sacrificing OR. You're sacrificing more private goods. So the opportunity cost of producing public goods is going up. Question number 6 says the graph shows the demand and supply curves for industry. What would cause a shift in the supply curve from S1 to S2? Very simple question. This is a question that you should immediately attempt. An increase in the wages would basically result into a rise in the cost of production. The supply would shift to the left. Question number 7 says a firm produces a good using very labor intensive process. There is an increase in the price of the good. So the price of the good is increasing. Under which conditions will the supply of the firm be most price elastic? So the supply of the firm would be most price. This is a very good question. What would be the answer to question number 7? Yes, guys, what do you think is the answer to question number 7? Yes, waiting for your answers in the comments. Sir, please explain question 6. Because question 6 mein kya hai? I mean, there's nothing to explain here. The supply curve is shifted to the left. And one of the reasons why supply curve shifts to the left is an increase in cost of production. So for 6, David, an increase in wage rate. Wages would increase the cost of firms, shifting the supply to the left. Simple. Question number 7, Ariha says the answer is A. Hunzila says the answer is B. Neither it is A nor it is B. So it's either C or it is D. And the correct answer is C for Charlie, and I'll tell you why. So, I mean, that's what Cambridge is now doing. I am telling you that Cambridge is now not testing a lot of diagrams. If you look at the previous year papers, you look at all the previous year papers, there were a lot of diagrams in it, because diagrams just test the graphical areas, and so it's easy. Scoring more on diagrams is easy, but scoring on these application based questions is very difficult because these questions are subjective and tricky. So that's why the MCQ paper is so tricky now. And there's the problem with students is that at the end of the day, they are students, right? You guys are like 17, 18-year-old kids, right? And then a lot of students do have a tendency to not listen and do what they think is right, while according to them, what is right might not be right. And so if I'm talking to the students generally, so they would come and say, oh, our paper 2 went really well, and we have a lot of time for MCQs, and you know what, we scored really well in our mock exam. Okay, fine, you scored well, but in the mock, these sort of questions weren't tested. The colleges are also not doing a good job in giving the mock exam and making the mock exam so easy. So the mock exam is neither the marking is reflective of a CI marking, neither the exam itself is reflective of how an exam really comes. Especially the MCQs are so easy in mocks that students end up scoring so well. Okay. So for question number 7, C for Charlie, it says nature of the labor employed by the firm. You see, if the workers are, you have to understand that let's talk about skilled workers like maybe a cab driver, and let's talk about an unskilled worker like a cab driver versus a skilled worker like a doctor. It takes 10 years to become a good doctor, but it takes probably 3 days to learn how to drive a cab and a day to just get your license made. That's it. So you see, unskilled workers are easily replaceable as well, and they also have an elastic supply. And so what we're saying is that under which conditions will the supply of firm's good be most price elastic? So, and then the question is also talking about very labor intensive process. So it's not talking about something that requires a lot of automation. And neither we don't need to really figure out whether this product is to be made by skilled labor or unskilled labor. Neither primary sector this production is primary sector production, or whether it is tertiary sector production is given. So since all of this information is not given to us, and just based on the basis of whether the workers are skilled or unskilled, we need to come up with elasticity, then the best answer is C for Charlie, because the more unskilled workers we have, they are easily replaceable, right? So easily replaceable, and more could be found in more quantities rather than skilled workers. So obviously we have more cab drivers than we have doctors and engineers and accountants and economists. And the level of unemployment in the economy also has to be high. So if the level of unemployment in the economy is high and firms are willing to offer jobs, then a lot of labor would be employed and they would be easily willing to offer themselves for work. And also, if the workers are unskilled, they are easily replaceable. They would easily be employed by firms and they would be producing more output, right? So question number 7 is C for Charlie. Question number 8, what is most likely to cause the demand curve of inferior good to shift to the right? Very, very, very extremely simple question. Rise in income tax. Because the rise in income tax would reduce disposable incomes and make you feel poorer, and when you are actually poorer, it means that you will consume more inferior goods. Question number 9 says the diagram shows 4 supply curves, which price elastic supply curve equals to 1. So the correct answer is A for alpha, because when the supply curve starts from the origin all the way up, it's a linear sloping supply curve. So the PES is equal to 1, that is unity throughout the supply curve along all points of the supply curve. And I've said it before, I'll say it again, that there's a YouTube video why elasticity differs along a supply curve. Make sure that you watch that video. Question number 10 says the diagram shows how. This is a good question. Attempt this question. Question number 10. What would be the answer to question number 10? Question number 10. Yes guys, what would be the answer to question number 10? Question number 10 says, how will the consumer surplus and producer surplus change? So the price is increasing, right? So what is the old consumer surplus? The old consumer surplus is the area that is above the price under the demand curve. So the old consumer surplus is all of this triangle, right? And when the price goes up, the consumer surplus goes down by S plus T. So consumer surplus basically falls by S plus T. So the answer has to be either C or D. So I'm just cross out A and B. So the answer is C plus D. And देखिए पेपर जो आपका एक्चुअल एग्जाम पेपर होता है ना, you don't need to make it neat and clean. You want to scribble on it, do as much as you want, and just cross out A and B so that your eyes only focus on C and D. Cross it out like this. So C plus D, either C and D is the answer. So it's C plus. And if you look at the producer surplus for question number 10, the producer surplus was initially the producer surplus when the price was P1. The producer surplus was all of this distance, that is the area that is below the price above the supply. It was all of this distance, right? So the producer surplus initially was U plus W plus Z. That was the producer surplus initially, right, for all of this quantity. Sorry. My bad. Initially the producer surplus was my bad. Initially the producer surplus was this. This was the supply, right? Initially the producer surplus was U plus V plus W, and now after the supply falls to the left, it becomes vertical. So the new producer surplus would be, and the price goes up. So the new producer surplus would be the area that is above the supply and below the price. So the new producer surplus would be all of this distance. All this distance is the new producer surplus. So the new producer surplus is actually S plus U plus W plus Z, right? And so you have W previously as well. You have U previously as well. So you have gained S and you have gained Z. So you have gained S, you have gained Z, but you have lost V, right? So V is no more there. So the producer surplus is actually S plus Z minus V. So D for David is the correct answer, right? S plus Z minus V. Okay? Question number 10 is D for David. Question number 11, good X has a substitute good Y and a complement good Z. The price of good Y decreases and the price of good Z increases. So good X has a substitute good Y, the price of good Y is decreasing. If the price of good Y is decreasing, then the demand for good X has to go down. So demand for good X has to go down and the price has to go down for good X as well. And since Z is a complement and the price of good Z increases, then people will consume less of Z, but they'll consume less of X as well. So demand for good X will again go down. So why might the equilibrium price remain unchanged? So what we conclude is that the demand for X is going down and the price of X also has to go down. But then the question is saying that the price of X is not going down. So what could prevent the price of X from going down? And ideally, if the demand for X is going down from D1 to D2, then the price should have fallen. Your equilibrium should have been from A to B. The price should have gone down, right? The price should have gone, but it's not going down. And the only explanation to this is that there has been a fall in the supply of X. So the supply falls from S1 to S2, right? If the supply falls, the supply falls from S1 to S2, so your equilibrium moves from A to so your equilibrium moves from A to C, right? So there's no change in price because we can clearly see that the supply has basically gone down as well. So that is basically the reason why the price hasn't changed. And the only answer option that truly supports the fact that supply has gone down is option number C, that says some firms stop the production of good X. Because if some firms stop the production of good X, then it means that they have exited the market. Stopping the production means that you stop the production, means you close down, that you exit the market, and that would cause the supply of good X to fall. And this reduction in the supply of good X, basically balances out the fall in demand, keeping the equilibrium price unchanged. Question number 11, C for Charlie is the correct answer. Question number 12, repeated question है. I think 2 दफ़ा तो मॉक्स में भी हम कर चुके हैं. इसका आंसर मुझे रट गया और आपको भी I'm sure रटा हुआ है. YZ इसका आंसर है. In year 1, the government purchased an amount that is necessary to ensure that the price was OP. But इसका जो तरीका है आप समझ लें इसको, that if you want to maintain the price of OP, then you have to buy out this surplus. If you buy out a surplus, you increase the demand. But then the point is that supply again shifts to the right in year 2. So again, there's a surplus, right? And again, you need to increase the demand. So you need to buy up the surplus of YZ, right? So the answer is YZ. And the reason why it's YZ is because you need to buy out that surplus. Intervention buying. Remember, those of you guys who are already my students, I've taught you guys under something called intervention buying. So when the government buys up all that surplus, it basically ensures that the price is maintained at OP and there's no downward pressure, because ultimately then there would be a downward pressure. There's so much surplus that is being made. So what will the government do? What will the farmers do with that surplus? They can't burn it. They have to. So the government is going to buy that surplus at a price of OP. Otherwise, then the farmers would have to reduce the price from OP, and then they have to somehow sell out that surplus. Question number 12 says, 13 says, inequality in an economy can be categorized as either income inequality or wealth inequality. What is most likely to cause greater wealth inequality than income inequality? Question number 13. Yes, guys. What's the correct answer to question number 13? What leads to greater wealth inequality? See, wealth inequality includes your assets like property, shares, and land, right? So when the property value would increase, the answer is boy, because when the property value would increase, the asset owners typically, and these asset owners are not poor asset owners, these are rich people. So these are typically the richer individuals. They would again gain more wealth, and this is the reason why during inflation the asset prices go up, and that's why it creates an unequal income distribution. One of the reasons why it creates an unequal income distribution is again this as well, that the asset prices go up and the richer would become more richer then. So it creates a wealth inequality because of inflation. So that is what B is the correct answer, because not everyone owns property, na? This would just widen the wealth gap, even if incomes remain. So even if incomes remain unchanged, the wealth gap would widen. Question number 14 says, a product with infinite elasticity of supply has sales of 1,000 units a week and a price of $1. The price elasticity of demand of 1.5 over the relevant range. The government imposes a 10% tax. What will be the weekly tax revenue from the product? To read the question again. The product has an infinite elasticity. The PD is equal to infinity. Iski sales 1,000 hai. The market equilibrium price is $1. The PD is 1.5. It says the government is imposing a 10% tax. What will be the government's tax rate? Now you need to understand that when usually the supply curve is upward sloping. A typical supply curve is upward sloping. And when you impose a 10% tax, that is an ad valorem tax. So it would basically rotate your supply curve like this, which indicates that at higher quantities, since supply curve reflects the marginal cost of production. So at higher quantities, so for producing this quantity now, this was the cost, but now the tax is increasing the cost. And basically the tax is actually, because you have to understand that for producing quantities in this area, you need a much higher price in this area, right? You need your price area is this area for the quantity area, that is this area. And your price area is this area for the quantity area, that is this area. And the quantity area, that is this area, is basically the area where the marginal cost for producing these goods is not that much. That is why the value of the good is much less. You are justified to get a lower price out of it. So if it's justified to get a lower price out of it, then for this unit, this is the price, and then you impose a 10% tax. This distance represents the tax, but then for the units in these areas, you need a higher price, which means that that is why we see that the gap keeps on widening, because for these units, these dudes in this area, the cost is already very high, and ad valorem tax, a percentage on the value or the price or the cost of the tax or the price of the tax or the value of the tax, sort of widens up that gap. And that's why you see that, there's the ways the supply curve rotate. I mean, it's not a parallel shift, it's an ad valorem shift. And what this means is that I have guests outside, and they're making a lot of noise. And what this means is that but then the point is, ये तो बात मैं सबको इसलिए समझा रहा था basically ये बात, because what I would just give me a second, because what would happen is that it is basically going to increase so basically what we're doing is that you have a demand and supply diagram here, and then this is supply diagram, this is demand diagram, and then you have like 1,000 units here, okay, and you have $1 here, and then what we're saying is that a tax is imposed. And when you impose a tax, right, so you have to understand the fact that what do you really mean by an elastic supply. So elastic supply का मतलब होता है that the producer is willing to sell infinite units at this price, right? So normally when you have an upward sloping supply curve, so to produce this quantity you need a much higher price. To produce this quantity you need a much lower price. But over here, to produce this quantity you need the same price. For this quantity you need the same price. So the point is that if a tax is imposed, even a percentage tax is imposed, the supply curve would just shift parallel upwards. Even if a percentage tax is imposed for special cases like these. Because for higher units of output, you don't need a much higher price. You need the same price. So the supply curve is just going to shift upwards to the left, right? And so because when it shifts upwards to the left, the producer would be supplying infinite new quantity at the same higher price. So the tax is a 10%. So at $1 you have like a 10% tax, which is 0.1. So the price is going up by 0.1. So you have like the new price is 1.01, right? And which means that the new quantity, we don't really know the new quantity, but we can figure that out through the PD formula, because we have the PD formula that is percentage change in price over that. So 1.5 times what is the quantity percentage change in quantity? We have X divided by the percentage change in price is 10%. The price is going up by 10%, right? So the percentage change in quantity would be how much? It would be 15%, right? 15%. The quantity is going to fall by 15% because the price is going up by 10%. So the quantity has to fall only because the PD is negative, which means that this new quantity should be less than 1,000. So if you multiply 1,000 by 85%, then the new quantity should be 850. So this is your new quantity, that is 850. The question is saying what will be the government's weekly tax revenue. Now we know that the tax revenue is the tax per unit is a vertical distance between the two supply curves, and that is equal to how much? It is equal to 1.01 minus 1 is 0.01. So you have 0.01 multiplied by 850. So you have this entire area that is a tax revenue to the government. So it's 0.01 times 850, and the answer should be how much? How much should be the answer, guys? What is the answer? Can any one of you please tell me the answer to question number? It should be how much? It should be 0.01 times 850. 0.01 times 850 is what? Am I correct? 1 into sorry, ये 1.01 नहीं है, ये 1.1 है. 10% से price बढ़ रही थी ना, so from $1 it was going up by 10%, so the new price was 1.1, right? So this is not 0.1, this is actually 1.1 minus 1, this is actually 0.1. So how much is 0.1 times 850? 0.1 times 850 should be 85, so the new price has to be 85. Got it, guys? This is what we are actually doing. And by the way, the reason why I explained because a lot of students say that it's a ad valorem tax, so why isn't the supply curve opening up like usually? So you see the supply curve opens up like this because it reflects various values or the various cost associated with producing higher output levels, and the fact that producers need different prices to produce higher quantities. But here it's not that case. A supply curve with a perfect finite elasticity means that a producer could produce even 100 billion units at the same price. Question number 15, guys, shows that the table shows the values of CPI. Are you all there with me? Everyone there with me, guys? Everyone is here? Can you all hear me? Question 15. G. सब इधर ही है? All good? ठीक है. So basically, guys, अगर हम देखें, this shows the CPI and the workers' salary 2022 and 2023. What is the real value of workers' salary in 2023 compared to 2022? You see, you have to apply the formula to calculate. You see, you have to understand that when we are calculating GDP, when we are calculating real GDP, the formula for real GDP is nominal GDP multiplied by the CPI of multiplied by the CPI of the current year divided by the CPI of the base year, right? That is the formula for real GDP, right? And similarly, if you want to work out the real value of salary, the real value of salary is simply the salary adjusted for inflation, right? And similarly, just like real GDP is GDP adjusted for inflation, the same formula you will apply for here as well, right? Real salary would be the nominal salary times CPI in current year upon CPI in base year. अब ये सारे formulas, guys, is in my I've done all these videos in my national income accounting topical playlist as well. All these formulas are there as well, and the booklet that I will share, the study guide I will share later on, has all these formulas as well, and the workings as well. So nominal salary and so real GDP, real salary in 2023. We need to find out the real salary in 2023. So 25,000 times the CPI of the current year 110 divided by 100 would be 25,000 times 110 divided by 100 would be the answer would be what? Question number 15. I think the answer to question number 15 would be कुछ गड़बड़ तो नहीं कर दी है मैंने फिर से. I think मैंने oh god मैंने उल्टा लिख दिया है. I forgot, sorry, my bad. Oh god, I wrote the formula in reverse. Real GDP is nominal GDP multiply the CPI of the base year upon the CPI of the current year. My bad, because ये आपका सही है. So nominal GDP, so again the real salary की value would be 25,000 is the worker's salary times the CPI of the base year is 100 divided by CPI of the current year is 110. So answer आना चाहिए इसका 122.22727. So boy should be the correct answer. ठीक है, 15 is B. Got it? That's how you're doing it. You just need to apply the formula, that is real salary, just like real GDP is real salary, is your nominal income or nominal salary simply times CPI of the base year, ठीक है, divided by CPI of the current year. Then that is exactly what you have done. Just like we calculate the formula for nominal GDP, a formula I have included in the study guide as well. if you want to have a look at how the study guide looks, this is how the study guide looks. This is how the study guide looks, right? This is how it is. This is the study guide. So this is the real GDP, is nominal GDP. And I've showed all these workings as well. So make sure that you, before going in the exam tomorrow, you studied from the study guide today as well, okay? So ये हो गया, an economy is experiencing rising unemployment due to falling incomes. So question number 16, guys, what would be the answer to question number 16? G, 16 would be what? Sixteen would be question number 16. Question number 16, economy is experiencing rising unemployment now. As of तो ये तो बहुत simple है. Question 16 should be A for alpha, because it's simply cyclical unemployment. So 16 should be A, cyclical unemployment. ठीक है? That is basically due to a lack of AD in the economy, where workers are made unemployed in a recession. ये हो गया. ठीक है? The next question says, what is likely to move an economy's AD curve to the right, aggregate demand curve to the right? What is likely to move an economy's aggregate demand curve to the right? Yes, guys, what would be the answer to question number 17? What is likely to move the aggregate demand curve to the right? The simple answer would be a fall in exchange rate, because when exchange rate goes down, the currency depreciates. It improves net exports. So net exports goes up, which is a component of AD. So AD shifts to the right. So yeah. So 17 is C for Charlie. AD shifts to the right, because lower net exports, a lower exchange rate makes your exports cheaper, and it makes your imports expensive, which increases your net exports, causing the AD to shift outwards to the right. So yeah. So ये होगा आपका answer. Got it? Everyone, 17 should be C for Charlie. Prashant, Hunzila, Ariha, Abdullah, Salim, everyone of you, all four of you are correct. Question number 10 says, which items have to be... देखो मैंने आपको नहीं कहा था. Remember I told you about नहीं, not this. वो एक अलग MCQ है. Question number 18. Yes. Question number 18 says, which items have to be added and subtracted to GDP at market prices to calculate GDP at basic prices? Yes, the answer to question number 18 would be David, because you so GDP at market price plus your क्या कहते हैं subsidies minus your indirect taxes would arrive the GDP at basic price or GDP at factor cost. GDP at basic price or GDP at factor cost. And all of these formulas are explained in the National Income Accounting chapter as well, where I have covered the topical videos. So there's a playlist, topical videos, you can check that. And my study guide, the cheat sheet, also includes these formulas. Question number 19 says, in an economy... Question number 19 says, in an economy with an interest rate of 4%, the rate of inflation falls from 5% to 3%. What will be the benefit of this fall? Yes, for question number 19, what will be the benefit of this fall? What should be the correct answer? See, interest rates are 4%. The inflation rate is falling from 5% to 3%. So the real interest rate would be nominal interest rates minus your inflation rate. So the nominal interest rates are 4%, and now the inflation rate is 3%, so the real interest rate is 1%. But previously, the real interest rate was, if the interest rate was 4% and in the inflation was 5%, so the real interest rate was negative. So from negative 1%, it goes to a positive 1%, right? So who is gaining here? Savers are gaining, because people who have deposited money, for them, they are the ones gaining right now, because they're actually getting the purchasing power of their savings. The purchasing power of their savings is actually rewarding them by 1% in real terms, because although they're gaining more in terms of 4% extra additional interest, but that extra additional interest of 4% is absorbed by half of it, or more than half of it is absorbed by inflation, right? In fact, it is absorbed more by inflation last year, so that's why you had a negative in real interest rates. But now you have a positive real interest rate, which is a good thing. So savers would gain in real terms, they would benefit, right? Question number 20, what is an example of macroeconomic policy? Abdullah, आपका question मुझे समझ में नहीं आया. I mean, I didn't understand what you're asking. Question number 20, what is an example of macroeconomic policy? So the correct answer for question number 20 should be, what should be 20? What is an example of macroeconomic policy? Again, maintain price stability, easy. Which supply side policy is likely to lower real output before raising it? Good question. Students did end up screwing this question up. Which supply side policy is likely to lower the real output before raising it? Question number 21. And the correct answer about question number 21, option B, fixed people on fixed incomes will be better off in real terms. For question number 19, कह रहे हो people on, क्या था इसमें, inflation rate was see, this is not entirely wrong. That people on fixed incomes would be better off in real terms is not entirely incorrect. The answer option for question, and here is where the problem rises. Question number 19, boy, is not entirely incorrect, because it says that people on fixed incomes would be better off in real terms. But the point is that this is subjective. How much will they be better off? In fact, they would be more better off. They would be more better off had inflation fallen more from 3% to maybe 1% or even 0%. So they would still have been more better off. And since this is not giving us a very accurate analysis, because this is a bit subjective, they will be better off, but by how much? Because they would be more better off if inflation is 0% rather than inflation just falling. So because it says better off, so we can't really judge the scale of to what better off. Yes, they are better. The statement is not wrong. But they would be more better off if inflation is 0%, not just falling. So here inflation rate is falling. But if it falls to 0%, they would be more better off. So, but if you look at option C, savers will gain in real terms. That's absolutely correct. Savers will gain in real terms. And there's no subjectiveness over here as well. Because if you compare it from the previous inflation rate, from 5% it jumps to, the real interest rate goes up to 1%, savers are definitely gaining. Because savers, initially the savers were here the savers were losing in real terms, but now they're actually gaining in real terms. So again, like I'm telling you guys, हमेशा इस तरह की situation, आपके इस तरह का MCQ कोई ना कोई one MCQ will be there in the exam where the debate will be not between the right versus the wrong answer, बल्कि choosing the best right answer out of another possible right answer. This debate will be there. And the only way that you can mitigate the risk of marking the wrong answer is that you give a second thought for questions like these. Before saying that, before jumping on to B, think that what if C is also correct? right? Because the question, अब देखो question देखें आपको, and for that reason what you need to do is that in such circumstances you need to go back to the question. For such a dilemma that you will face in the exam, which you will tomorrow, you need to go back to the question. Go back to the question. Now I want you to go back and see what the question is saying. What will be a benefit of this fall? So you need to come up with a guaranteed benefit. So yes, people on fixed income will be better off in real terms, but they will be better off in real terms if inflation is 0% as well, not just falling, right? So, but then the fact that savers will gain in real terms is absolutely correct, because if you compare previously, they are gaining in real terms. देखें, अगर वो ये कहते हैं ना कि people on fixed income will gain in real terms, तब एक अलग बात होती, तब MCQ reverse हो जाता. अभी better off is a subjective word. You have to understand the word here, better off. This is a subjective word. It includes subjectivity here. And this is where examiners trick you, they play with your head. And this is where most students screw up. And this is, and even if you screw up this MCQ, which majority of people might, because they did screw up this MCQ in the exam, in the October-November exam, what I am trying to explain to you is that you should be very easily able to score 27, 28 in the exam paper. So you are good enough. Because बाकी सब गलत नहीं करने. आपके गलत करने के MCQs कौन से होते हैं? देखिए, कुछ MCQs होते हैं जो गलत करने के होते हैं, वो हो जाते हैं गलत, वो ये वाले होते हैं. इसके अलावा गलत किया ना अगर कुछ, फिर मज़ा नहीं है. फिर तो मतलब जो पढ़ने वाले बच्चे होंगे ना, वो इन MCQs को हो सकता है गलत कर दे. But then you have to mitigate the risk of marking this MCQ incorrect as well. And the only way that you can mitigate the risk is rereading the question, reverting back. What if it's C? Why not B? Why not C? Start thinking, why not B? Why C? Read the question wording. Understood, everyone? All the students, have you guys understood? Because these are practical tips that I'm giving you for tomorrow's paper. You will face this dilemma in tomorrow's paper, I'm telling you. And you'll come out from the exam hall, most of you will be like, okay, fine, I did a great, fabulous paper. Which supply side policy is likely to lower real output before raising the real output? Question number 21. Which supply side policy will lower the real output before raising the real output? And that the correct answer for this is reduced import barriers. Because when you reduce the import barriers like tariffs or quotas, you are actually allowing more foreign competition, which will hurt domestic producers in the short run, or in the immediate run, or the short run, which will lower the domestic output of domestic industries and domestic infant firms. But over time, the pressure to compete and to survive, basically, and for survival you need to be efficient, where ultimately result into drive innovation and productivity, and ultimately this will lead to rise in output in the long run by driving long run growth. So there would be dynamic gains from trade in the long run because of reducing the import barriers. So it's not just allowing more free trade isn't just harmful. So the infant industry argument is a much valid argument, but in the long run it does result into benefit, because you have to somehow compete with foreign competition. So 21 is C for Charlie. And आप देखें, अगर आप, मैं आपको बताऊं बहुत honestly, that in an exam, I mean, these MCQs are very short MCQs. I mean, look at this MCQ, but a lot of students did end up marking it incorrect. They look so easy. From the face of it, they look easy, but they play with your head. Question number 22 says an economy is in equilibrium at, again, this is a very easy question. They say the government is reducing expenditure on budget, G goes down, AD has to go down. So this is such an easy question. They have just complicated the diagram. So the correct answer has to be A for alpha, because the initial demand curve is this. This is your initial demand curve, while AS1 is your initial supply curve. So your initial equilibrium is at E. When the demand goes down, equilibrium falls to A. Question number 23 says the number of people employed in a country and the level of unemployment both decrease. Up question number 23. Yes, guys, what is the answer to question number 23? These are confusing MCQs. That is why I'm giving you time to first read the question. Question number 23. What would be the answer? The number of people employed in a country. So अगर मैं हूँगा ना, मैं सोचना अब मैं, if I am giving the exam, I'll start thinking, oh, the number of people employed are going down. So I will write, oh, I'll use a pencil, I'll employed are going down, and then I'll say the level of unemployment level is also going down. Then I'll say, what could explain this? I'll read net inward immigration. Okay, but net inward immigration means more people coming in. So if more people are coming in, this would result into higher labor supply, and this might actually increase the unemployment rate, because the formula for unemployment rate is unemployed divided by the labor force. And this might immediately, net inward migration might in the short run increase labor force, reducing the unemployment rate. But here, increasing the unemployment rate, sorry. And here it's saying unemployment rate is going down, so this is not the answer. Increase in the level of unemployment benefits, higher unemployment benefits may actually increase unemployment. Because people, it might be counterproductive, people might exit the workforce voluntarily, and they might sit at home and just relax and rely on these unemployment benefits. And increase in the age at which state pensions are payable. An increase in age at which the state pensions are payable would just keep more people in the labor force. And again, I mean, this statement doesn't really has to do with the answer. So this is just a general statement made that an increase in the age at which the state pensions are payable. So it really won't have an impact on the fact that employment is falling and unemployment level is going down. But something in the economy is changing. That is option D. And increase the number of university students. So if more people start doing 4-year, 5-year, 6-year programs in university, what would happen is that, you see, when you are working, let's say I'm working, and let's say you are also working, so you're part of the labor force. But the moment we end up in university, we are full-time students, so we are not part of the labor force anymore. So we exit the labor force, and then we're also not working, right? So if you're not working, the employment levels would go down in the economy. And the unemployment levels would also go down in the economy, because if you're not part of the labor force, then we're not even actively seeking work anymore. And since we're not actively seeking work and we are university students, so we can't really be called jobless. Because we aren't really, so you guys can't be called jobless because neither you're part of the labor force, neither you're actually looking for work. So you can't be called jobless. So the unemployment level would go down if a lot of people who are already employed just exit the labor force and start working, because then they're no more seeking work. That makes David the correct answer. Question number 24. Which circumstances would help a firm to gain from a depreciation in the exchange rate? Which circumstances would most help a firm to gain from a depreciation of the exchange rate? So the correct answer would be A for alpha. It sells mainly abroad and relies on domestic suppliers for inputs, because depreciation would make your exports cheaper, imports more expensive. And if the firm is selling, if the firm sells exports and it uses local cheap imports, then it gains, higher revenues from exports without really suffering a cost increase. So A is the correct answer, right? Because depreciation, what is depreciation doing? Depreciation is making imports expensive, right? And is reducing exports. So if exports goes down, then exports should go up. If the price of exports goes down, then exports demand should go up, exports should go up. And it says it mainly sells abroad. And then it says it relies on domestic supplies for imports. So even if imports are going up, even if import prices are going up, imports are getting expensive. So domestic firms don't really care. I mean, they're like, we don't care if the imports are getting raw material getting expensive, because we don't source raw material from abroad. We source it from domestic markets, right? So depreciation usually causes a rise in cost of production, because if you're dependent on imports, but since you aren't, so there's no rise in cost of production for domestic employers, for domestic firms. So it sells. So A is the correct answer. Got it? Question number 25 says a country has a floating exchange rate. सही है, 24 clear है. 24 is A for alpha. A country has a floating exchange rate. Its current account on the balance of payment moves from a surplus to a deficit. Which rate is likely to increase in the short run as a consequence of this worsening its current account deficit? So if you're moving from a surplus to a deficit, that what short run rate increases this? So I mean, you have to understand that if you have a current account deficit, then your export demand is falling and your import demand is actually going up, which means that import demand is going up, which means that you have more leakages in the economy. And so if exports are going down and imports are going up, then your net exports are going down. So the domestic economy is facing a lower demand. Lower AD, lower spending, output will fall and unemployment will rise. So the correct answer has to be, for 25, the correct answer has to be D for David. You have to understand that the question is saying what rate is likely to increase as a consequence of this worsening of the current account deficit. And if the current account is in deficit, then it means that your exports are going down and imports are going up, which means that net exports are going down. So AD is going down, which will create cyclical unemployment. So unemployment rate will go up. 25 has to be D for David. Got it? 25 D for David. 26 says which policy is most likely to reduce a balance of payment deficit without causing inflation? Again, question 26 is a good question. This has tricky MCQs. This variant has many tricky MCQs. Why not B? किसका B नहीं है? Consequence पूछ रहे हैं, cause नहीं पूछ रहे. They are asking about consequence. They are saying what will happen to the consequence when the current account worsens. If the current account worsens, when is the current account going to worsen? When exports will fall, imports will rise. So net exports is falling because of a current account worsening, which causes AD to fall. And as a consequence, when AD goes down, your unemployment goes up. Right? What rate is likely to increase? And by the way, your currency would depreciate. The exchange rate will depreciate. It won't increase. So B is incorrect, because when net exports will go down, your demand for the currency will go down because your exports are falling. At the same time, the supply of the currency will go up because the imports are rising. And the demand of the currency will go down because exports are falling. So this together would mean that the currency would depreciate. The question is asking what rate is likely to increase. So the exchange rate is not likely to increase, it will depreciate in fact. That is why B is incorrect. So it's the unemployment rate only that is likely to increase. Economic growth rate will fall as well. This will fall. Exchange rate will fall. Interest rate has nothing to do here. So we don't really need and care about the interest rate here. In the interest rate का कोई impact नहीं है यहाँ पे. Unemployment rate is going to go up. 26, which policy is most likely to reduce the balance of payment deficit without causing inflation? The correct answer has to be C for Charlie. The reason being that when interest rates would go up, it would encourage saving over spending. So it would encourage saving over spending, number one. And what else? Higher interest rate cost of borrowing would go up. It would reduce consumption and investment, so AD would fall, and rising interest rates would attract capital inflows, short-term capital inflows, which are known as hot money inflows. Hot money is short-term capital movement. FDI is also capital movement, but not short-term. It's also capital flow, but long-term. But interest rates go up, hot money inflows आएंगे. Hot money inflows would mean that what policy is most likely to reduce a BOP deficit? So hot money inflows will have a positive, favorable impact on the BOP. So BOP deficit should actually go down. सही है? Second thing. When cost of borrowing goes up, consumption goes down, investment goes down, AD goes down. Number 3. When savings go up and spending goes down. When saving go up, spending goes down. Together 1 and 2 मिला के, together 1 and 2 means AD goes down. When AD goes down, national income levels goes down. And which means domestic growth goes down. And when domestic growth goes down, it causes lower imports, because higher imports is a sign of strong growth, and to import less you need to have lower growth in the economy, right? So this would mean that this is going to cause AD to fall, right? When AD would fall, it says it without causing inflation. So there won't be any inflation, right? Because it will have falling AD has a downward impact on inflation. The inflation goes down. There's more deflation, in fact. Price level goes down. And plus, because of hot money inflows, the BOP deficit reduces. So question number 26 is C. One of the student is saying, Ishal says, why not B for question 26? It's not going to be B because currency depreciation can actually improve or reduce a balance of payment. A currency depreciation can actually reduce a balance of payment deficit, but it depends whether the elasticity of exports and imports is elastic or not. If exports and imports are elastic, then only current currency depreciation will reduce it. Also, even if let's say we assume that they are elastic, even if we assume they're elastic, and let's say that balance of payment does reduces, problem is that currency depreciation will increase net exports, and net exports will increase AD, and when AD goes up, it will cause inflation. Itne sare concepts, they have actually mixed up a lot of concepts in this one particular one-line MCQ, right? So that is why B is incorrect, because you need an improvement in BOP. At the same time, you don't need inflation. So option B will cause, just like a student Ariha says, it will cause demand for inflation. So option B is incorrect, but option C is correct, because higher interest rates would attract hot money inflows, and via the hot money inflows channel, your BOP deficits would reduce, because hot money inflows are recorded in the financial account, okay? And they have a positive impact on the balance of payment, okay? And on the other hand, inflation would also reduce, because higher interest rates would reduce C, it would reduce I, it would encourage saving. So saving is a leakage. The more the leakage, the lower the AD. The more the spending, the higher the AD. So demand for inflation should go down in that case, right? Yes, beta, the paper is difficult. You are not supposed to. And by the way, this is your variant. Your paper could be tricky as well tomorrow. Don't have the expectation that the paper will be easy. The paper could be difficult. It could trick you. This paper is difficult. And this is variant 12, your variant. This is a difficult paper. Out of May, June 2022, 2023, 2024 May, June, even Feb, March 25, this paper is a difficult paper. Tomorrow's paper could be tricky. Just look at the size of this MCQ. This MCQ looks like the most babyest MCQ, but we are stuck on this MCQ since the past 5-6 minutes, because this MCQ is tricky. It is testing two different concepts. So you have to think about each MCQ, each answer option. Okay, fine, depreciation could reduce the balance of payment deficit, but then it will cause inflation. And by the way, even there's no guarantee that the balance of payment deficit would reduce. For that as well, the elasticity of imports and exports should be more than 1. But even if we assume it's more than 1, then inflation could be compromised, because that would cause demand for inflation. Question number 27. The table shows the average price of exports and imports. Do not expect tomorrow's paper to be easy. It might be easy, God knows, but don't have this preset expectation. The table shows the average price of exports and imports. Which combination of changes in the export price and import price would result in a country's terms of trade to increase? I think I gave this question in my mock as well, mock 3. So the correct answer to question number 27 should be D for David, because when the export prices would increase and the import prices would be the same, then the terms of trade would improve. What is not an example of protectionism? Yes, question number 28. What is not an example of protectionism? What is not an example of protectionism? So question number 28, what is not an example of protectionism? So let's suppose Pakistan raises the GST. It says the government of Pakistan increases the rate of GST on some exported goods from 2% to 5%. This is not protectionism. Protectionism aims to protect and shield domestic industries by limiting imports or subsidizing local producers or firms. Taxing your imports do not protect domestic producers. Taxing exports do not protect domestic producers. In fact, it can hurt them. It can be a pain for them. So boy is the correct answer, because increasing GST on exported goods is not protectionism. But sir, C also have the same answer in question 27. कहाँ है C? अब्दुल्ला बेटा, मुझे लग रहा है ज़्यादा आपने MCQs कर लिए हैं. कहाँ सेम तो नहीं है. वेयर इज इट? 27 C कहाँ है? C आंसर ऑप्शन कहाँ है? देखिए, ये जो एक एटीट्यूड होता है ना स्टूडेंट्स का कि पेपर एक हेडेक है, रोना शुरू हो जाते हैं, ये एटीट्यूड ही गलत है लाइफ में. अब है तो है भाई, है तो है, पेपर मुश्किल है तो है, अब क्या करना है, अब भाग तो सकते नहीं है उससे भाई, है तो है. तो आपका ये एटीट्यूड होना चाहिए भाई, अब है तो है, अब एग्जाम, अब ये एटीट्यूड होगा ना तो फिर आप कल के पेपर में डरोगे नहीं. कल का पेपर अगर मुश्किल आ गया भाई, आ गया, अब क्या कर सकते हैं, अब करना तो है उसको. सो एटीट्यूड अपना ये रखें आप. दिस पेपर इज अ हेडेक, माई लाइफ इज अ हेडेक, माई स्कूल कॉलेज इज अ हेडेक, आई एम अ हेडेक, ये सब छोड़ें आप लोग. सही है. सो यू शुड हैव अ वेरी पॉजिटिव माइंडसेट, अ ग्रोथ माइंडसेट, दैट ठीक है पेपर इज डिफिकल्ट, ठीक है, इट माइट बी अ हेडेक, बट देन दिस शुडंट बी योर रियलिटी. This should be somewhere on the surface level, but this shouldn't define you as an academic student. Okay, Amtul Tahir, got it. Question number 29 says Turkey imported 220 million worth of goods and services. Turkey exports 12 million worth of goods and services. Its net income was 15. What is the Turkey's current account balance? So what is Turkey's current account balance, guys? What is Turkey's current account balance? The Turkey's current account balance should be what? Turkey's current account balance should be, calculate करें. Current account balance should be, imports कितनी है? 220 is imported, so you minus 220 हो जाएगा. Exports is 12 plus 12 हो जाएगा. And then you have a negative, the net income was minus 15. अब यहाँ पे income is basically, they've given net income, which means they're included primary, secondary, both. But it is in deficit. So minus 220, minus 15, plus 12, the correct answer is 223 deficit. So the table shows the exchange rate for national currencies per US dollar. देखिए, per US dollar means, so let's say the national currency is PKR. The per US dollar means हमेशा simplify किया करो. Before reading the question, exchange rate का question है ना. If the question is on exchange rate, it says per US dollar, so you say okay fine, 1 US dollar equals to whatever PKR we have. The table shows which currency has the smallest percentage appreciation. अब पहले तो देखते हैं against the US dollar between 2019. So first let's see whether dollar is appreciating or not. In what cases is dollar appreciating? If you look at option number 1, initially $1 was 6.91 PKR, but now a dollar is 6.90 PKR, which means that dollar is depreciating. So dollar is depreciating in option A. Is dollar depreciating in option number B? Sorry. जी, विच करेंसी, अच्छा सॉरी, करेंसी हमारा डॉलर का नहीं, हमारी अपनी करेंसी पूछी है ना, सॉरी माय बैड. So $1 is 6.91, so dollar is depreciating, but PKR, so they are asking which currency has the smallest appreciation. So they're talking about the domestic currency. So PKR over here appreciates, ठीक है. Here PKR depreciates because obviously a dollar was 70.4 PKR, but now a dollar is 74.1 PKR. So dollar depreciates, so obviously the PKR depreciates. Here also PKR depreciates, and over here PKR appreciates. So PKR is appreciating only in option B and option A and option C. So you can now calculate the percentage change in the appreciation. So how will that be? 6.9 minus 6.91 divided by 6.91 times 100. The percentage change is 0.145%. So PKR is appreciating by 0.145% in option A. In option number D, the PKR is appreciating by how do you calculate the percentage change? 0.94 minus 0.99 divided by 0.99 times 100. That's the basic formula for percentage change for any two numbers. Divide by 0.99 times 100. How much that comes? That comes to 5%. So PKR appreciates by 5%, which means that option A is the correct answer option. So A is the right answer for us. Okay? Because it's just talking this. I mean, it's not difficult. You just need practice. And the biggest, and this is something that I've been screaming since day one, that students would screw up their grades. See, there are different sort of students, right? There are some students who don't study the whole year and they just want to do last moment studying. And obviously after tomorrow, since you're, after tomorrow, and the standardization meetings for A-level economics are in process, and the marking scheme is being finalized, and then in fact some of the scripts have been distributed, they have been scanned, and they have been circulated as well, and the marking process will start at Cambridge very soon. And I'll tell you something that I'll be very honest that some students would be very good in paper 2, but a lot of students would screw up their grade just because of P1. And I'm very honest. I don't want to demotivate you, but I'm just telling the reality that we have seen students get A's in P2 and C's in P1. P2 में लाना इतना difficult नहीं है, especially when you know how to write an answer. Let's say you study a topic a night before on elasticity, that comes, you end up doing it, and you end up getting that good grade. Let's say you get an A or a B. But P1 is the real challenge. P1 is the paper that tests real concepts in economics. Getting an A in P1 and an A at P2 is the main thing. And it's very important that if, let's say, the threshold is whatever the threshold is, by the way, your score in AS should be more by let's say by at least 6 marks more in AS. And then obviously in A2 as well you exceed, because in A2 usually grades drop. It's difficult to score in A2. It's not easy. A2 is not easy. A2 is a very big challenge. The syllabus of A2 is 3 times more than the syllabus of AS. Thrice the size and numerous diagrams in A2. The A2 is a big challenge. Anyways, we are deviating from the topic. What I'm going to say is that I hope you do. And for today, make sure that you practice these papers. 2020, 2021, 2022. If you haven't practiced 2023, but make sure that at least 2023 कर लेना. बाकी 2017 से 19 मैंने करा दी हैं. Make sure that you do these 4 papers as today. Make sure that you do them. These papers should be done. Okay. The threshold is expected to be slightly higher than the expected threshold is likely to be higher in P2 this time. Okay, let's start with variant 3. Let's not waste a lot of time. Let's start with variant 3. The diagram shows a production possibility curve. What can be concluded? This is variant 3 ना, सही निकाला है ना मैंने. Variant 3 हाँ यही है. What can be concluded? देखेंगे बेटा कल के पेपर की MCQ stream. I am actually busy tomorrow. It's the 3rd day of Eid, so I'm not really sure about that MCQ answers, but I'll see about it. Question number 1. What can be concluded from the BBC diagram? What can be concluded from the diagram? So question number 1, the correct answer to question number 1 has to be D for David. There is constant opportunity cost between food and drink. Yes, there is constant opportunity cost between food and drink. Question number 2 says which type of good does not consume scarce resources. They can foreign these are the MCQs that immediately आपको पहले ही करने सबसे पहले. Question number 2, the correct answer should be boy. Free goods are goods that do not require factors of production. They are abundant. They involve no opportunity cost, neither in consumption nor in production. Question number 3, the factors of production earn different rewards. Which identifies the correct economic term for these rewards? So, capital, they're asking which is the correct economic reward. Na? So, land ka correct reward is rent. ठीक है? So, got it? बाकी तो गलत है सारे. Capital का reward is interest. Enterprise का reward is profit, labor का reward is wages. Question 4, what is the most likely to be an advantage of division of labor? Again, very simple, increase in labor productivity. Question number 4 is boy, increasing labor productivity is an advantage of division of labor. Question number 5, a government wishes to encourage the consumption of a merit good and reduce the consumption of a demerit good. So what policy option the firm would adopt? The correct answer for this should be B for boy, increasing the advertising on the benefits of the good, because this would just provide more information and, information failure would be addressed. And for demerit goods, put legal controls on output, because obviously putting legal controls on outputs or legal controls lagaएं, probably taxes lagaएं, that would reduce, demerit goods are overconsumed, so you need to put legal controls. It requires legal limits, it requires legal controls, right? So, or maybe tax the production of demerit goods, something like that. But is it tax? So third mein likha hai, but this is correct, but this is incorrect. C is incorrect. C mein this is correct, but this is not right. So yes, so B is the answer. B is the answer, na? Why are you guys saying D? Okay. Question number 6 says shoe manufacturers often use leather to make their most expensive shoes. Due to a world shortage of leather, the price of leather has risen. What will be the effect of the price change? G. The correct answer for this should be obviously the demand for substitute. If leather is becoming expensive, the leather shoes would cost more and consumers would then switch to substitutes of leather goods. So I don't know, maybe leather के जो भी substitutes हैं, synthetic shoes or whatever, so definitely that will rise in demand. Question number 7, the diagram shows the Chinese government relaxed controls on private housing. Private house ownership rose sharply, replacing demand for apartments rented from the state. What would have been the most likely to happen? Most likely कह रहे हैं, तो most likely में हमेशा दो option confusing होते हैं. To happen to private housing prices and the rents of the apartments. So demand for private houses will increase because the government is guys, can you hear me? I'm so sorry, my battery just died of the laptop. I didn't realize I hadn't charged before the stream, but I think we are in order now. So are we back in order, everyone? Could you just let me know if you're back in order? Is everything good now? Are we back? Okay, perfect. So let's start. Okay, question number 7. We were on question number 7. So question 7 says, yes, what would be the answer to question number 7, just by the way? Yes. What would be the answer to question number 7? Just a second. Okay, question number 7 would be the Chinese government relaxed the controls on private housing, right? So 7 was basically C for Charlie, because the private housing prices would increase because the demand for private housing is good. So if the demand for private housing goes up, then the private housing prices would increase and apartment rents would decrease because the demand for rented apartments would go down. So the rents for those apartments would go down as well. So there's people are substituting houses for rental apartments, right? Question number 8 says the supply of a product is determined by the price equation S equals to T plus 10P. So T plus 10P when P is the price of the product. So what is the price elasticity of supply when the price changes from $1 to $2? Yeah, so इसका क्या आंसर होगा? जी, what would be the answer? Question number 8. So question number 8, if you see that so first let's calculate the initial quantity. That would be S equals to 10 plus 10 times 1. So supply would be 20, and then the new supply would be 10 plus 10 times 2. So the new supply would be 30. Now you can calculate the PS would be the percentage change in quantity supplied upon the percentage change in price. Price is going up from 1 to 2, so that's like 100% jump. And the quantity is going from 20 to 30, so you can calculate that. And the answer should be, I think, boy, PES equals to 0.5. So question number 8 should be B for boy. Right? Everyone? Question number 8 should be B for boy. Question number 9 says a good has the following elasticity values. The cross elasticity of demand is given. The income elasticity of demand is given. So what do you think? What do you guys think would be the answer to question number 9? G. What would be the answer to question number 9? 9 ka correct answer should be C for Charlie. Yes, this good is a substitute or inferior, because a positive XCD of 1.4 is indicating that the good is a substitute, while a negative YD value is indicating that the good is inferior, which means that when incomes would go up, the demand for inferior goods would go down. So question number 9 has to be pretty simple. 9 has to be C for Charlie. Question number 10 says the different areas on the diagram represent different aspects of a market. Which rows correctly identifies the 3 variables shown? Consumer surplus, producer surplus. So consumer surplus would be the area above the price below the demand, that is RST is consumer surplus. Producer surplus would be this area that is above supply below price, that should be SUT, producer surplus. And the total expenditure would be this entire box, STGO, right? STGO would be the entire consumer expenditure. And आपका ये क्या होगा? That should be basically what? That should be question number 10 का जो correct answer होना चाहिए, that should be B for boy. Okay, question number 10 should be boy. Okay guys, question 10 boy. Question number 11 says which combination of the classification of a good of a good and market change will cause the demand curve for the good to shift to the right? G. Question number 11. Question number 11 का क्या आंसर होगा? Question number 11 would be, question number 11 should be A, inferior and income decreases, because for you need to understand, for inferior goods, basically demand increases when income falls, right? So because consumers can no longer afford more expensive normal goods, right? So they switch to cheaper substitutes, which are like instant noodles हो गए और used clothes और ये सब बेकार, मतलब ये सब चीज़ें हो गई. So fall in your incomes would basically shift the demand for inferior goods to the right, and yeah, that's what question number 11 should be, A for apple. Okay, so when incomes would decrease, the demand for inferior goods would shift to the right. Question number 12 says, which policy is likely to solve the free rider problem caused by the public goods? कौन सा अरिहा, आप कौन से क्वेश्चन की बात करिए? Why isn't option D for question 11? You guys are saying for question number 11? For question 11, right? So you guys are saying for question 11, why isn't... See, for question 11, the answer is incorrect because it says which will cause a demand curve to shift. If you decrease the price, then the demand will increase, but the demand, so this is the quantity of normal goods, this is the price of normal goods. So the price of normal goods would fall, that would increase the quantity of the normal goods, but there would be an extension in demand, not the shift in demand. That is why option D is incorrect. 11D is incorrect, that is why. Got it? That is why option D is not correct for question number 11. Got it, everyone? Everyone understood why 11D is the incorrect answer, everyone? Okay. Now, coming to वापस question number 12. Coming back to question number 12, now which... Achha guys, listen, I'm saying that my laptop basically needs to charge right now. It is not charged. I forgot to charge it before, it has died almost and it needs some time. So let's basically call it off for like the next 20 minutes. मैं इसको 20 minutes charge कर देता हूँ and then 20 minutes के बाद हम इसको आगे complete कर लेते हैं इस paper को. ठीक है? Is that fine? Is that fine? 30 minutes. After 30 minutes we can reconnect. Okay? Because we need to finish this paper. It's a good paper. ठीक है? 30 minutes में reconnect करें. 30 minutes तक तब तक I will charge my laptop and then we could reconnect.